big open world. It has passive multiplayer. So when you head into this world, you don't necessarily have to like head into a lobby to meet up with your friends or anything like that. You just kind of like get into the game and start playing, and someone will just like run along and start playing with you.
Okay.
The other stuff that's going on is that we have stamina-based combat, so you'll see this kind of high-risk, high-reward, animation-based combat kind of going on, which is a great sort of like catalyst for the team play that we have going on, where you can see like two guys going at it right now, where they're trying to beat up some vagrants that are lurking around this area.
Is that their official name, or are you like giving them an adjective? You're describing them as vagrants.
That's an adjective.
Okay,
I'd say, yeah.
making sure.
These are sort of just kind of like desperate people that are left, because what's sort of happened here is this is the first time that there's been any natural light in this world. It's been a dark place for ages, and the light just blossomed into the world, and you're running out there, but there's sort of these people that have been kind of like just making it by in the dark this whole time, and when you come across them, they're not necessarily too trusting of you.
You know, I just put something together, and I want you to talk. Well, maybe I did, and I want you to talk a little bit about it. Most, if not all, of the human-looking characters are semi-faceless.
Sure, yeah.
Now, I'm wondering if it has to do with that darkness or something like that. Please, just go ahead. I'll let you tell me about it.
Look, it's not necessarily like a genetic thing or anything like that.
Oh,
They actually don't have faces. It's more of a stylistic thing. Where they don't. But you know, our choice to do that, we had two reasons, and it's good when these things sort of come together from multiple angles. But the first one was just that when you meet another person, since you're a lot of the time just meeting strangers who run past you, to not judge them by face value is a general thing. That we wanted to kind of instill in the game right from the ground up. And that was interesting because, you know, like, I think no matter how much we tried to do stylized faces on our characters, and we played around with a lot of things, there was no way that our artists wouldn't kind of infuse a bit of meaning, a bit of character into that without us wanting to necessarily. And when you want like players to run past each other, decide whether they want to play with each other based on how that other person plays, not necessarily how they look. And the other side of it was also just that the way we built ASHEN was very much from the outside in. Like, where a lot of times what we'd do is look at a character and like make this really iconic character and then build a world around them. Whereas with ASHEN, we kind of built the world first. And it's almost like if you look at like a really amazing painting of an environment, the characters can be quite small and quite minimalist within that whole very complex thing. And so we felt that by pulling our characters back a little bit, it kind of like, if you just sit back and look at screenshots of ASHEN, they sit very well with looking at the environment and kind of just being absorbed into this world, I guess you could say, yeah.
Absolutely.
Where do you draw influences from for this game? Like, as I was looking more about it, people can't help but mention Soulsborne, right? But I imagine like you guys want a piece of any pie, like Soulsborne ASHEN. But I mean, people call Soulsborne any title, like Nintendogs is Soulsborne to people. But when you look at a game like this, what influences did you draw to create this?
There are so many, you know, like certainly Journey was a big influence just from those like absolutely genuine experiences that you had from like somebody moving past you in a natural way, choosing whether you want to hang out with them or not, and then just like
real life.
Yeah, exactly like real life. So that was definitely a big thing for us. Super Brothers Sword and Sorcery is an amazing influence just for their amazing art style and kind of looking at what's achievable in this medium of games, you know, like and where we can take the look of a thing. Certainly looking at things like Dark Souls, like, you know, they've absolutely like pioneered this genre of stamina-based combat. So to even be compared to them in any way, to be honest, is humbling, which is amazing for us.
Speaking to the story, which is one of my, like, I love a good story and I like games that have lore and that kind of stuff. How does the lore and the story get revealed to the player?
Sure. So what we would have seen before this area that we're in now, you would actually see, you would start out in a dark world without any light, and you move towards this mountain on the horizon, which is exploding. And so as you get closer to it, it explodes and you fall down, you land in this area. And so essentially what that is a phoenix myth, where in ages past there was a phoenix that kind of landed in the area of the universe where you are, but it was dying. It was kind of taking its last dying breaths. And in its last few breaths, those were the first 3 ages of light in the world, but it breathed those breaths and then it died. and that's where the world has been in this like many eras of darkness since then. So people have kind of like learned to survive in this kind of very brutal world. But when you start this game, it's just as the Phoenix is starting to be reborn. So it's kind of getting reborn out of the ash that is this world. And your job is to try and find it, try and protect it from forces of the dark that are probably actually trying to revert the world to what its natural state would be.
Okay.
If all things being fair. But for you as a human in this world, like the light is very valuable, so you want to protect it.
Okay.
What are we thinking about as far as variety in apparel, armor, weaponry, and things like that? How deep does it go?
There's a ton of stuff that you can do. I mean, like, particularly like looking at weaponry, for example, one of the big things for us is that players should be able to choose a weapon that feels good to them. So, like, there are a ton of weapons that just have different animation types. Whether it's that they're sort of role-playing something that you get more of a drunken master sort of feel to it, or if it's a weapon that lets you like hit stuff and do backflips, like kind of meshed into the whole attack sequence, or if it's just like a giant club that you want to like hammer away at things. There's a ton of stuff there, as well as armors and things like that. Just how players customize themselves is so important.
You have like fisticuffs, right? Like cesta and things like that?
We don't necessarily, actually. So like an interesting thing we did right at the start, and I suppose that it's similar to like removing the faces for us, was that we made it that we just decided day one, we're not putting swords in this game. And that was literally because we just didn't want to go to the absolute go-to. We wanted to make sure that our designers had to be original in the sort of the shapes that our animators are making as they're animating things. They couldn't do sort of the tried and true stuff that they actually needed to think about it. So we've got a lot of spears, a lot of axes, and a lot of clubs in the game. And those three kind of weapon types are very varied as well. That some of the clubs might not necessarily look 100% like clubs to you, but that's kind of the archetypes that we've gone for.
On a scale of Hello Kitty to Broken Controller, how hard is the game?
Hello Kitty's pretty hard.
It's a good question though, because we get a lot of questions, like particularly relating to Dark Souls and like Souls-like stuff, and it's like, is it at that level of difficulty? And my answer is a little bit complex for this, because the game has been designed from the ground up for co-op. Everything is balanced for co-op, and you're playing with another person. Like, just as you can see here, they're going into a dungeon, someone else is joining him in there. So there's not necessarily, if you play it by yourself, it's probably even slightly harder than those games. But if you play it together with someone else, it's easier. So like a lot more accessible. But at the same time, it's not like you don't just cut through it like a knife through butter. It's like the balance curve is very much towards two players. But what is amazing about that is like our super hardcore players, like we've got perks that you can customize your character with and stuff like that. And a lot of them are actually geared towards people who don't want to play with other people. So they want that hardcore experience. So like, there are ones, for example, where like that dungeon door, you can open it solo. You don't need another person. And so that's for people who are just like, you know what, I don't need somebody to help me out with this dungeon. But at the same time, as I say, the game is absolutely balanced, like that sort of thing, where he just helped his friend out with this spider crab thing called a skag, which has pinned his buddy. If you go and hit it, it'll like unpin him, and so it makes the whole thing easier from the unpinning to this sort of stuff here, where he's getting revived by his friend. So if you're playing by yourself, you can't necessarily do that. But we do have like major game-changing perks as well. Like there's one that if you do die like that and you're by yourself, you'll crawl out of your own body as this like desiccated wraith creature and be able to keep on going for just like one more try as you go further.
Nice.
Yeah, dude.
So
that's sick.
There's a ton of options for like customization of the type of play style that you want to do, and what we really hope is that means that like players who are more intimidated by the Souls-like difficulty can play with their friends and kind of get through it and enjoy the story and enjoy the world that we've made. But then the people who want that like super hardcore experience can absolutely get it too.
Casuals can have fun too.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Now, if you want to, is it automatically co-op with another person, or can you like get an AI or something like that to help you?
That's a really great question, because right now what's happened here, because we've got one person behind the scenes here playing today, this is AI that's hopping in with him.
Okay.
And so behind the scenes, our matchmaking decides like, you haven't had a friend like try to connect you in ages, like you're somewhere else that's kind of like far away from other people or something, and it'll let AI pop in with you. and they're sort of programmed to act just like a player. You'll even see this AI, if we do get far enough in the boss fight, the first time he'll get hit down by that AoE, and the second time he learns and he moves away from it.
Oh, really?
So there's
wow, that's cool.
There's sort of stuff like that happens, that they start to react to things and act quite interestingly. Yeah, absolutely. And then even on top of that, we've got more options for players, like customizing the way they want to play, because you can just turn off, like, I never want to see AI in my game because I only want to play with players.
Options important.
Or I never want to see players in my game, I only want to play with AI, or stuff like that. You can do so, like, everybody gets the full experience as well as being able to tailor it.
Excellent, man. Well, thank you very much for showing me the game.
The dark is older than the light. At last a day dawned, and we rose with this first light. But that light was a betrayal, only fleeting. In its wake, the night returned to claim us. After lifetimes, the light grows again, faint and vulnerable. We will live in the new light rather than just survive in the dark. This rebirth will end our wandering.